As soon as we put the competencies alongside of curriculum, that dramatically, very profoundly impacted the caliber of learning in our school. So here's an example from the first year of a map. You can't read that, I bet. The middle question says, what responsibility comes with freedom? This is the first term of 6th grade in Alberta. Our teachers spent hours creating this map, trying to make meaning out of all 7 subject areas and how they would relate with that notion of the responsibility that comes with freedom. It is messy and it is complex. Imagine what that must feel like for learners and for parents. Our second year, the maps started to evolve. And by now you can see that there is no template for a map in our school. First year, I'm a bit of a concrete sequentialist. I gave a map template. Guess what I got back? The exact same map template from every single team. The second year I said, you make sense of your curricula. You hand it in whatever format works for you. And so I get different formats. This is another format that shows how our subject area discipline specialists are working together, in this case language arts and science, around the topic of biological diversity and the merits and limitations of genetically modifying organisms. You can see that teachers are identifying their assessments. They're also identifying the need to knows, the foundational knowledge and skills children need to develop in each subject discipline. That resulted in posters that looked like this. That map resulted in posters that were about 7-foot-long posters that I'll show you in a moment, were shared at a research fair. As students were developing their proposals for a genetically modified organism, we realized again that we needed to draw upon the expertise of our community to heighten the caliber of learning. Our science teacher is a phenomenal science teacher, but she's not an expert in all things that are genetically modified. For every student indicated interest, that teacher went and found mentors from our university who worked with our students. Our students picked topics of interest to them. The curriculum says identify genetically modified organisms. It doesn't mean that the whole class needs to study the same one or modify the same thing. So, anybody have a 9th grader at home? Anyone here? Yeah, I have a 10th grader. They like to eat. Boys love to eat when they're in 10th grade. And so this poster is 3 boys in 9th grade who didn't like the no nuts policy in our building. You have a no nuts policy here, I saw. And so they want to eat granola bars and chocolate bars and things that have nuts. So they want to create a hyperallergenic peanut. And that was their project. The problem is there are not a lot of experts about making hypoallergenic peanuts. So we got them the best one we could find. But this is where our kids are smart. Our kids knew they needed specialized expertise. They took this project very seriously because it was their project. And they went to Dr. Peggy Oskin-Atkins, I believe at the University of Georgia. On their own, they initiated an email. She is the world-renowned peanut specialist. They did not tell their teacher, they did not tell us, but for several months they were conversing with this researcher here in the US, and she was giving them feedback on their research proposal, the methodology, and their conceptual framework. We've learned that our students want the mentorship and the expertise that our community offers. We also learned that when we give our children access to different resources to think about their learning, that they work at a different caliber. When our students know they can print off a poster that is 7 foot long in full color, the caliber of their work changes dramatically than if we ask them to do that on a sheet of loose leaf paper. We have bought cameras, we've bought plotter printers, and we have put that into our hands of our students. All of our students have access to those technologies and tools to advance their learning. So here's our research fair, and you can see it's just like at any other university. Our students are standing with their research, And the research is being critiqued by the academic community. Researchers, parents, community members, central office colleagues, everybody came down. We had Dan Riskin, who's a biologist and a TV personality, who's on the Discovery Network. He Skyped in and gave each group of students customized feedback on their posters. Instead of children getting one piece of formative feedback or summative feedback from their teacher, they got multiple opportunities to have feedback on their work. We believe it's important for kids to have opportunities to showcase their learning, whether it's a final product, like in this case, or whether it's a process somewhere along the learning journey. And we've learned that when teachers are passionate about their work, when they are engaged and they feel ownership for their work, so will their students. So we use a model called a think tank in our building. And this again focuses on elevating the professionalism of teachers. When we decided to use project-based learning, we used the materials from the Buck Institute. And it only took us a few months to realize that that wasn't going to work in our context, because we have a mandated curriculum in Alberta. And so we decided to buy every single book written about project-based learning. We downloaded article after article and put those in the hands of our teachers. We took one teacher from every grade level off-site for almost a week, and we said, look at this, read it, talk about it, think about your experiences, and help us come up with our own definition around what does project-based learning look like at Michael Strambitsky School. So our teachers in that process, in that deep, sustained, collaborative process, they were able to identify both content and instructional processes that were directly supportive of our local context. And so now when our teachers talk about project-based learning, and some of you had the opportunity to speak with them when you were in our school, they own the work. They can articulate the practice in ways that they wouldn't have if they were using someone else's work. So what does project-based learning look like? Well, in our school, we often will start with the driving question, and we want our students to take ownership for our school. And our 9th graders, when they left, our first graduating class, wanted to leave a legacy project behind. And they originally wanted to buy basketballs. And I said, what kind of legacy is a basketball? Like really, I can buy basketballs any day. I said, what can you leave that will truly make a difference in the lives of the people you have lived with here for the last year? And so out of that question, our students developed this project called Words and Actions to Live By. And the question was, how can you be an agent for positive change? And our students engaged in action research. They went into every classroom from kindergarten to 8th grade to find out what were the questions of concern, what were the challenges or the things that kept our kids up at night. And then they were going to think about how they could address those common areas of concern. When they went out there, they wanted to hear about playground safety, they wanted to hear about extracurricular clubs, and they didn't hear that at all. What they heard about was our littlest guys don't like when people call them tattletales. Our Division 2 kids were scared of what happens when a rumor is started. And they were scared what would happen if a rumor was started on a cell phone and someone forwarded a text or something about them. Our junior high kids were trying to figure out what it means to be true to yourself and to be yourself under the duress of peer pressure. And our grade 9s were worried about the transition to high school. And so as they went through this project and they discovered these concerns, they had to come up with a plan around how would they address that. And so they decided that they would create a public service announcement, and then they would go in and teach a lesson to every single classroom in the school. And I want to show you an example of the Division 2 campaign.